You ever just, stop and look up at a building and wonder what it's really trying to tell you? It's kind of wild when you think about it. From ancient pyramids to these gleaming modern skyscrapers, our architecture has always been a huge part of human civilization. So let's dive into the story our structures are telling us about who we used to be and, well, who we are right now.
Okay, let's start with what seems like a simple question. Why does a medieval castle look so radically different from a skyscraper? I mean, they're both these massive, imposing structures, right? But here's the thing. They were built to solve completely different problems for the people of their time. And figuring out that why, well, that tells you pretty much everything you need to know about the people who built them.
And that really gets us to the core idea here. Architecture is so much more than just shelter. It's a mirror. Seriously, our buildings reflect our deepest values, our most immediate needs, and yeah, the biggest challenges we're facing as a society. You could say they're literally stories written in stone, steel, and glass. So to really get this, we've got to travel back in time. Let's take a look at the architecture of the past. It was mostly driven by three huge, powerful forces: power, faith, and the simple, desperate need to survive. A huge driver for ancient buildings was, you guessed it, faith. Long before we had community centers or town halls, these places were the absolute heart of a society. They were the central spots for worship and reflection, and they were absolutely crucial for shaping the cultural and religious identity of an entire community. And you see this everywhere across the globe, don't you? It doesn't matter if we're talking about massive temples in Asia, soaring mosques in the Middle East, historic churches all over Europe, or ancient synagogues. The architectural goal was pretty much the same: create a physical space for something divine and bring people together under one shared belief. But, faith alone wasn't going to keep you safe back then. In a world filled with conflict, architecture was also a critical tool for basic survival. Entire cities and whole kingdoms built enormous structures for one very simple reason: to protect their people and their resources from anyone trying to invade. Just picture it. Those imposing forts, the seemingly impenetrable castles, and those sprawling city walls from the ancient world. Their design wasn't really about looking pretty. It was all about function. And that function was pretty brutal. Thick stone walls and high ramparts were a direct, physical answer to a very dangerous world outside. And of course, once you felt safe and had a place to worship, what's the next logical step? Show everyone who's in charge. Grand, over-the-top structures were these crystal-clear symbols of power and status, built by kings and the super-wealthy, not just to live in, but to send a very loud message. Yeah, palaces and these lavish mansions weren't just big houses. No way. They were a public performance of wealth and influence, designed to totally awe and intimidate anyone who saw them. Their sheer scale, the expensive materials, their very existence, it was all a declaration of dominance. And finally, ancient architecture was about bringing people together. It was about connection. To build a civilization that actually thrived, you had to be able to move people, goods, and even water. This required some absolutely incredible feats of engineering that were honestly just as impressive as any palace or temple. I mean, think about structures like the Roman aqueducts. Some of them carried over 200 million gallons of water to cities every single day. That, plus sturdy bridges and vast road networks, created the arteries of the ancient world. They were essential for trade, for communication, and for holding these massive empires together. Okay, so let's hit the fast-forward button and jump to today. The world has obviously changed, and our buildings have changed right along with it. The main drivers of modern architecture have shifted. Now we're focused a lot more on function, on culture, and on a pretty new, very urgent concern: sustainability. These days, the most common buildings are the ones we're in and out of every single day. They're all about meeting our basic needs for a place to live and a place to work. And a lot of modern design is really about squeezing the most function out of every square foot of space. This covers pretty much everything from our homes to our offices. But you know what's really interesting here? The skyscraper. It's not just some amazing feat of modern engineering. It's also a super practical solution to the problem of cramming more people into dense cities. And on top of that, it's become this huge symbol of corporate power and civic pride. So while ancient temples help define a community's identity, modern architecture often has the job of preserving it. We now design and build entire structures specifically to act as safekeepers for all of our collective cultural and historical treasures. These are basically our modern cathedrals of culture. Museums and art galleries are designed not just to hold precious things, but to create a whole experience. The building itself becomes part of the art, which shapes how we remember and share our history with the generations to come.
And this brings us to one of the biggest, most important shifts in modern thinking. With all the growing concerns about climate change, a totally new priority has shot to the top of the list: sustainable architecture. And listen, this is not just some fad, it's a direct response to a global crisis. The whole goal is to design buildings that work with the environment, not against it.
So this really sums up the whole journey we've been on. In the past, you can see architecture was driven by survival, by faith, and by displays of power. But today, while some of that is still around, our focus has really shifted. It's now about practical living, preserving our culture, and, maybe most importantly, trying to build a sustainable future. You know, if there's one big thing to take away from all this, it's that architecture is never finished. It's not static. It's a living, breathing field that is constantly adapting. The reason it stays so relevant is because it's always trying to innovate and design solutions for the unique problems of its time.
So all this brings us to one last big forward-looking thought. We've seen what the past built, and we've talked about what we're building right now. But what about the future we're creating?
Which leaves us with the final question to really chew on. What are our buildings going to say about us in 500 years? When future generations look back at our skyscrapers, our sustainable homes, and our museums, what story will they see? What problems will they think we were so desperately trying to solve?